So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for connecting for this webinar, which is organized by the SLASCOM Tech Forum. So I'm Calvin Hiddle. I will be your host for today's webinar. So today we are going to cover a very interesting topic today, the impact of gaming business and the potential it has for Sri Lanka. So most of us in some part of our life have played computer games, right? As a part of entertainment kind of mode. But little do we know that this industry is a billion-dollar industry. And in fact, it probably is going to be a trillion-dollar industry with technology areas such as extended reality, computer vision, cloud computing, all of this. And the interesting fact about this industry is that you need both parts of the brain. Now, why I say that is you need the creativity part of your brain and also you need the logical thinking. So without further ado, I will introduce our esteemed speaker, Supun Jayasinghe, who is from Arimac. So Supun actually leads the gaming gamification solutions, edtech solutions from Arimac. And also he is the Chief Operating Officer of IMIGames. So I'll just give a short introduction about Arimac as well. So Arimac is a Sri Lankan premier end-to-end digital solution provider in mobile enterprise solutions, artificial intelligence, machine learning, immersive technologies, and game design and development. So IMIGames is the Sri Lanka's first ever gaming portal, which offers diverse portfolio of 50 plus games under different genres, such as action and adventure. So for our audience today, please make note of all your questions and you can submit them through the chat portal. So once Supun delivers his webinar and the demo and presentation, we can take those questions, any clarifications and any queries. So thank you very much for connecting today. Supun, over to you and good luck.
Thanks, Calvin, and thanks everyone for joining in. Just give me a second till I share my screen. Basically, what Calvin was saying also triggered certain thing in my head as well. So things have actually changed drastically over the last 50 years or so, I would say. If I may talk on the slides and basically give you a little bit of an introduction on the things. Gaming industry as a whole, just like what Calvin said, had been there for a while, had been a form of entertainment for most of us. And it's been some, I would say, an unsung hero and a thing that has been there, been immersed over the years. So if we are to go back before getting into the business per se, I would like to give a little bit of a history and a little bit of facts in terms of what it is and what it has been. So if we really go back to our roots, gaming industry per se started in 1972. So as you can see in the screen, there's a game called Pong, which was a simple add-on to your screen and basically enabled people to play then and there itself. So it was a simple multiplayer game, started off back in the day. So it's 1972. And then, of course, I'm sure you all have seen this. This is Pac-Man, came in 1980. What I'll do is I'll give you some facts in terms of why I want to learn from the history or basically give you a little bit of insights from the history is that there's a lot that we can learn from this. So if we go back to 1980s when Pac-Man was first launched, it kind of took a little bit of strides from the fact that it was pretty much an arcade game, but really made money. So back in 1980s, it made more than $1 billion revenue in US. So 1 billion revenue back in US. And I'm talking about basically close to 35 years old. So you can imagine how much of potential, rather 40 years old made. So 40 years, 1 billion revenue. So that's what it has been. And then of course, I'm talking about the turning points. I'm talking about some of the well-known facts, but for us to get some context before getting into the gist of the business per se. Super Mario Brothers, I'm sure all of us have played this. Some of you have had a lot of nostalgic memories around this. So launched back in 1985 along with probably one of the successful consoles back in the day, the Nintendo Entertainment System, kind of revolutionized the industry. And Super Mario Brothers has been a franchise that has been there hit 35 years recently and had been in immense potential, and even to date shows the potential of how powerful it has been, because we're looking at about 2 generations, 3 generations talking about content of such. So it has become culture, it has become part and parcel of most of the lives, and especially on a global setting. Taking a step further, 1989 came the Nintendo Game Boy, or pretty much started the entire phase of handheld gaming. So it's the first handheld gaming system, which means that what you've been playing in front of a screen, in front of a TV, now is something that is movable. And now it's something that you can carry in your hand, which means you are given more potential in terms of this being part and parcel of your life, which means it has become part of lifestyle, especially in the US and the Japanese part of the world. It's more of a context where you actually now have something which is handheld, which is a lifestyle device. So 1989 it is. And of course, I'm sure you all know Doom, and some of my friends who are tuning in will also know that we had a lifetime playing this game. So it is 1993. Probably, I would say the point where it really pivots the first-person shooter genre, where, you know, we all have played first-person shooters. I'm sure all of you have memories, but no one could really forget Doom and how much of a power it has made. I'm taking a history lesson and I'm taking you down the line of evolution. And I'm sure we can't forget this particular device. This is a Nokia. When Nokia Mobile was the deal, I'm talking about 1997, having the first mobile game, or the first popular mobile game, Snake. So created a lot of potential. And even when Nokia is now trying to go for a relaunch, they're really concerned of bringing back Snake, because that has so much of power. And again, we are looking at a small dot matrix kind of a setting. We are looking at an 8-bit gaming retro style, which had been pretty much on the move. Now you can see how a handheld device like a Game Boy now kind of, even though you let go of some of the graphical elements, now come to a space like a Nokia mobile phone, which is I would say the most played non-smart mobile game back in the day, and continues to do so. So I've been telling you a little bit in terms of context of gaming, how it had evolved from this couch front TV facing entertainment to a space where now we are moving into mobile. Now we are coming into a space where we can basically having a little bit of mobility in terms of what we do. So taking another step further, this is Nintendo Wii U, another console which brought in the element of motion gaming into the scene, which means you can actually now get yourself out of the couch. Now you can move about, you have the controller, now you can back it around. You can basically try to mirror the reality in between traditional sports and the sports that's been played, or the esports side of things, but not particularly esports per se, but giving a little bit of motion gaming into the play. You're trying to put a little bit of context into moving the traditional lines of gaming. And actually Nintendo had a different overview on things. They wanted this to be targeted for non-gamers, which means you're enabling more of a family entertainment. Can you get your whole family to get together, give it a little bit of a difference in terms of an experience point of view. So kind of changing it up in terms of what it has been so far. But of course, you can see this being taken into a trend. And of course, now you know that there's a lot of motion gaming related content being developed as well. Okay, giving a little bit of more elements for us to learn. So this is Angry Birds. I'm sure all of you have played. I'll give you a fun fact regarding Angry Birds. So this is launched in 2009. This has been downloaded more than 2 billion times. And even to date, it has more monthly active users than Twitter. So it has around 200 million monthly active users, even at this date. A very powerful brand. And probably one of the first outsets where this entire freemium business model really came into the play, which means its game is given free. You have a little bit of premium elements which you need to pay and get. But at the same time, Angry Birds took a different turn on things. They actually sold a brand rather than a game. So then created more and more awareness. So Angry Birds became a franchise, which most of the people really knew. And it is a brand which was well known, comparing versus someone like Coca-Cola, which was what was not intended to begin with, but the vision that they took in terms of building this up. I've been talking about esports. I know I touched base on it, and it has to be spoken. So if we are to talk about something like Dota 2, we need to talk about esports and why esports. Like if you take something like Dota 2, it hosts the biggest prize pool in terms of an electronic sports goes, which means competitive computer gaming goes. So it hosts the biggest prize pool funded event, which is the Dota International, which is around 40 million USD in terms of prize pool. Let me give you a little bit of context to what it means. So if you compare 40 million versus the recently held ICC Test Championship, okay, so that the prize pool was around 4 million, 40 million, 4 million, and you can imagine the scale of it. So that's how big it has become in terms of an industry where you see, which you watch, which means you have viewership. Now you have competitiveness, and you are now kind of picking the pieces together and sharing it across. Going a little bit further, if we are to look at what League of Legends did. So similar to Dota 2 and very similar in terms of a gameplay style, but these are two fractions that you really can't get together with. Comes to a place which kind of changed the entire nation. So I'm sure we've been talking a lot about South Korea recently in terms of it changing the entire culture. And gaming had become a very powerful thing for South Korea, especially how League of Legends being part of their lifestyle. So they got numbers which are rallying around this sport. And of course, they were one of the first to get into I would say, a superior infrastructure when it comes to telcos, and kind of paved the way for them to be very competitive on a global space. So South Korea's turning point, probably what we learned back in the day. Yeah, sorry if you guys can make sure that as a house rule, keep it on mute so that it'll be easier for us to carry the session. So please, small disclaimer, please make sure that you keep your mute on, but probably after the session, we can get onto a Q&A and we can be more vocal. All right, so as I was saying, it changed an entire nation. And South Korea had been a nation that rallied around esports. To give you a little bit more context, they actually value their esports team bigger than their football team. And mind you, they were doing really good in football. Simply, even though they're doing good in a global sport, they still believe that esports is more of a national sport in their space, which means there's a lot more people getting onto it. And I'll give couple of more factors which before getting into a little bit of context. So I can't let go, or rather I can't say that this is something which I have to touch base on, which is Minecraft. Minecraft is the most played game probably on the last 10 years and had a surge recently with the streamer PewDiePie started doing streams on Minecraft again. Kind of had a rebirth, I would say, after a while. One of the most played games in the PC space, and at the same time, a game that has been used by a number of educators in the space of incorporating, or rather inculcating, the creativity on students. So another fun fact for us to learn. As I was saying, again, PewDiePie came on to the live streaming side of things, where now a platform like Twitch came up simply to make sure that you actually have a dedicated streaming platform only for gamers. Followed suit with what YouTube did with YouTube Gaming, and of course Facebook is doing with Facebook Gaming. You can see that everybody is following suit in terms of what Twitch did, showing the space where how powerful it has become in terms of a medium. And of course, we can't let go of something like Candy Crush. So as you can see on the evolution, doesn't necessarily mean that every game is very hyper realistic or that it looks the best, but it has a different element that brings onto the table. So Candy Crush has been the highest grossing game for the last 5 years. And mind you, even though they say it's freemium, it's one of the most earned games over the years as well, which means they have an amazing mantra of ensuring that you really make people happy. And at the same time, you make sure that you get that buck as well. They say, swipe the stress away. And that's the slogan they go with. So you can imagine what kind of science, and there's a lot of science that goes in terms of development of games like Candy Crush. And of course, you may wonder why I'm putting GTA 5 or Grand Theft Auto 5 here. A little known fact about GTA is that it actually has around 7 Guinness World Records. It made the best-selling adventure game on the 24-hour space. It was the best-selling game in the 24 hours. They made about 800 odd million within a day. So there's a lot of records that goes down there in terms of online production, in terms of it being a retail product that's been sold online. So GTA 5 had been another turning point, which means, again, the money is real and there's a lot involved in this industry. Pokemon Go, again, a revelation, took the entire augmented reality space into gaming and kind of created a whole new element around it. Had around 15 million downloads within the first week, around 200 million revenue in the first month. So you can imagine how powerful this has become in terms of a medium. Couple of more facts. Obviously need to mention something like PUBG or PlayerUnknown's Battle Royale. Some of you are playing, some of you don't like it, but something that I would like to mention here is that they initially started off with a zero marketing budget, which means they actually didn't have money to market, but it came to a space where they actually had premium time when it comes to airing TV in India and in across the world. They actually had paid adverts running on national TV. So it was up to that extent they built. How they did with the zero budget or zero marketing budget is that they kind of ventured into the space which games like Arma 3 or H1Z1 which started off in terms of this entire new battle royal element. So they were one of the first few guys to really explore this and kind of took by storm, connecting them with the Twitch streamers and the YouTube streamers back in the day. So created a whole new buzz around it. Another game that started off on PC and pivoted very big to mobile. So PC base is around 70 million who they have. And in terms of mobile, they have around 1 billion players now playing on mobile. So you can imagine what kind of power this has. Then, of course, we need to talk about Fortnite. Very similar in terms of space getting into, but something which we really need to understand is that Fortnite is, again, most streamed, most watched game on Twitch, has been, it has more users than Netflix. So you can imagine how big this is. And in April 2018, the Avengers Infinity War, the movie was released in the opening week. They actually made more money than that in opening a season opener for them. So you can imagine the power, what these content have, and really made, I'm sure some of you guys have seen this person, that's Ninja, one of the most famous streamers in the global space. And Ninja, again, back in 2018, he actually played Fortnite 12 hours in Times Square on the New Year's Eve. So that much of power these streamers also have. So again, learning from all these factors, something which I want to show you is that this is an industry which has grown, taken its strides from step by step and moved into a very powerful stage. So if I may to compare what the size of this business is, so it's hit around 220 billion in next year, which compared to the music industry, it's about 1/10. It's around 19 million. That is the entire record music space, which has Spotify to Apple Music to all your streaming music, as well as the entire record sales itself. Box office or the movie industry is around 40 million, which means about 1/8 of the size. So you can imagine how big gaming industry is, and this is not, mind you, having gambling in it. This is purely competitive gaming, or gaming as an entertainment service makes about this much of revenue. So it's a big potential, and of course it shows its power. But something which I really pick on you is that gaming itself is not what it sells. So I think today's call is about unlocking potential and what we can do, and especially what's the corporate's play when it comes to gaming. So this comes to an interesting topic. There is this concept called gamification, which is basically the application of gaming, or rather gaming principles in real life. So what does it mean is that you have certain factors in gaming which really gets you hooked on to. You do play Candy Crush for a while, but you wonder why you've been playing this so long. You've been addicted to it for a while, and then you try to wonder, how did they keep me engaged on this particular game for so long? Which means at the end of the day, if you're a marketer, you know, you really want the eyeballs, you really want the engagement. If you have a platform, if you have an application, you want people to stick onto your platform. You want people to be more engaged in your platform, which means you want that particular quality the game has. Is there a way that we can bring it into our application, our platform, our website? That's where gamification really plays a role. So you may ask, is it just for us to put up a leaderboard, or rather, are we to put some badges? Like in games, you get a badge if you do something, you get a completed record, they will say, job well done. Is that it what you really want? Is there more to it? So working in Arimac, we've been trying to figure this out. We've been trying to figure out how can we marry the two? How can we make sure that a corporate is happy? And at the same time, how can we make sure the gamer is also happy, or rather the person who's consuming the content is happy? So how can we make sure that we connect the two? Can we simply port something out there in a game and make it cool? Or will that really work out? So we've had a lot of studies around it, and I would like to get something in on you today. Let me share our own framework when it comes to gamification. This is something that we have came up with after a number of studies, after a number of, I would say, failed attempts. We figured out what really works and how we really need to design having certain core principles in mind. So we came up with this particular gamification framework. So I will not get more into the science part of it, but let me quickly tell you what it is. So it's called SCOPE framework, or SCOPE Arimac's gamification framework. So we try to make sure in our solutions that we have these 5 elements tagged to it. So one is that, so it's an acronym coming from SCOPE. S is social, which means that gaming has this ability where you can make certain content shareable. It can be put in a social media, it can put in elsewhere. You can get the social interaction of the game. For instance, you can show off your profile and say, hey, look, I'm a level 400 Candy Crush player, or I'm at the level 2000 right now. I can share it in my social media, which means that really has a social element. You can get that engagement coming in from a lot of people. Second part is the curiosity factor. Games have this ability to make sure that you always second guess. You want to know what's going to happen next, what's going to happen in the next corner. You really want to create that excitement going, hence you keep on, getting engaged to it. That's the curiosity factor. Third part is ownership. You really need to own what's in a game. Like for instance, in a game, you really own what you have done. For instance, you have a profile and you're very fond of your profile. If you're a person who's playing something like Need for Speed, you would really love to know what's in your garage. Okay, I have about X amount of cars, that's mine. If you're playing Call of Duty, you love the guns that you have, and you'll be really like to show off the skins. If you're playing Fortnite, there's different elements of ownership that you carry. And then of course the progression, which means just like in a game, in your application, in your space that you do this gamification, you want to make sure that your player or your consumer is actually having a certain amount of progression, which gets them to come on to the platform again and again and again. You need to make sure that you give progression. Otherwise, people may feel, hey, look, there's nothing much for me. I will get out of it. And then, of course, the most important thing is epicness. See, this is something which is very hard to recreate, and we tried really hard to create this epic moment or the big moment in a game in a real life experience as well. So what do you mean by that is that in a game, you are having a greater than life cause in terms of what you're doing. For instance, you would be either the last man saving the world, Either you're trying to be the Formula One champion, where you're racing against the legends out there, or else you're just fighting against, the zombies who's going to take over the world, which gives you a larger than life experience. You are a soldier in the front line of war. And can you really take out all those enemies? You probably take down more, which gives you more of an epicness. You're a superhero in your own game, which is the experience people really like to get engaged into. So we use these 5 principles, and we have done a number of case studies. So what I would like to do right now is to show you some of our case studies, and just show you how we have connected the dots, and to give you this insight that there are a number of companies in the Sri Lankan context who really, placed their trust on us and really had done work on the same space. So I'm sure you guys have seen there's this game that we did for Keys called Keys Power Shopper. Here the experience is a little different. I can still recall our colleagues in Keys when we first met. What they said was, hey, look, we really want to make sure that we get people to come onto our platform, or rather we get the kids to tell their parents, please, let's go shop at Keys, but not at any other retail outlet or the retail chains out there. And that was basically the brief we had. We just got the brief saying, look, we want to make sure that you create something so the kids out there will tell the parents, look, we want to go and shop at Keys, nowhere else. And they were kind enough back in the day to offer us, the gift that we would like to give away to make sure that this entire loop is completed. So Keys Power Shopper is a simple runner game, side-scrolling runner game we created. The difference here is that we managed to connect with their loyalty platform as well as their point of sale system, where if a person really buys a certain amount of goods worth the basket value, predefined, of course, and if we manage to make sure that that basket value is met along with certain conditions, the POS system allows a particular coupon code which can be entered in the game to get an extra life. So everyone wanted to get a life so that you can get ahead in the leaderboard. Hence, you have to come and shop at Keys. Okay, so this is a behavioral change now that we kind of incorporated. In a way, there is a business sense. Why? Because your basket value is now kind of pushed up. You're making sure that these guys are coming only to Keys, but not to any other outlet or their competition. Kind of created a very unique flavor on things. Talking of flavor, we worked with Harpo's, giving a little bit of a crunch in terms of a game point of view. So when we created the game Harpo's Pizza Rush, it was more of a novelty, which again, Harpo's wanted to make sure that there are certain factors that they bring into the table, which other pizza providers are not doing. For instance, they cook with cinnamon wood. So we created the game where we showcase the fact that, they are really cooking with cinnamon wood, gives in those insights in terms of what is something which is not known from the consumers out there. And of course, we worked with Dilmah. I'm just giving a couple of case studies just to see that how diverse this is. So it's not skewed to one particular industry or skewed to one particular, a user group. It is actually an open-ended profile of people, profile of goods that's been sold there. So Dilmah, for their 70th anniversary, we did up a game, which again showcased, this was a global release done along with their new products being launched on the 70th anniversary, again showcasing what really goes in terms of creating a cup of Dilmah tea. And of course, with the current setting, we actually had to do a lot of things virtually. And we worked with Nestamol to bring in this, I would say, a simple turnaround of bringing in Urdu experience on a virtual world. So I don't want to explain a lot here, but just to make sure that, we have done elements like that. And of course, connecting that with the current context, we worked with WHO as well to educate users in terms of how to wash hands, because in the current context, cleaning hands is something really, really important. And to make sure that you really do it right, and especially educating the kids, doing it through a game is very powerful. Hence, we used that as a medium. A couple of more case studies where we open the portfolio even wider is that we got Umaria to work with us to do up a game to her hit singer. Again, how can we bridge the two? Now you saw that music industry is in such a way, it doesn't mean that it can't coexist with games. We have done that where we married the two and connected the two parts of the world. giving a little bit more power to the game. And then of course we work with Umaria and we work with Urania as well. Especially again, the requirement is to connect with the population, with a younger audience, what we can do. So we work with Urania in a game of hers as well. Then of course, talking of the digital space and digital entertainment, you can't forget these guys. So we work with Block and Dino very closely along with Silonta to bring in a game which is again connecting YouTubers, connecting proper artists with a game, kind of bringing in that porting a real life actor into a game. So we did a little bit of an exercise on that just to create something very unique. So those are some of the key insights or the key case studies at Arimac that we did. So, but just to want to make sure that why I shared these experiences, that it is something which is done already. So it's, I wouldn't say that it just started happening. It's been happening for a while, but what's been the underline or the unsung hero is that it's been in the rise for a while, and now it is pivoting at a very larger magnitude. So if you're concerned, you can always reach out for me, you can reach out for us. We are definitely open to, working with you. We can come up with solution of your own as well. All right. So having said that, there's another factor that I would like to mention here is that I'm sure some of you are really, really happy or really concerned of doing a game of your own. Can I, I have this cool idea. I really want to bring it into perspective. Can I really create a game by myself? Probably, you're not a computer engineer, you're not a software engineer, you probably aren't a game designer or a game developer, but that's the possibility for you to explore this. So this has been a question that has been in the rise, I would say, over the years. And provided that it's a digital world, digitally connected, a lot of passionate youngsters out there who really wants to do something on this space. What I want to basically open up or widen your horizons is with this movement that has been happening in the software world, which probably not many of the developers like, but it actually brings in a lot of creative side of things into the play. Like Calvin rightfully said in the very beginning, this is an industry where you really need to have both sides of the brain, which means you really need the creative input. At the same time, you need the technical know-how to support as well. So hence, the no code or the low code movement is a movement that's happening in most of the softwares out there, which means in a platform, you really get people to come on and operate with low skills of coding, or even with no skills of coding as well, which means it gives you a sandbox like an environment, which is easy for you to adapt. You can easily tweak it around and create content of your own, because ultimately speaking, what really works is that cool concept that you have in your head, and you should not really block yourself for not having the right tools or right set of things for you to execute it. Okay, so low code, no code movement is happening across the space, and it's not secluded for gaming, I would say, but definitely in the gaming space, it's getting easier. So if you take one of the big or the easy tools for you to begin with, one would be Unity. I'm sure it's widely heard, and I'm sure some of you who's already tuning in would know. This is having about 2 billion active users, about 1.5 million monthly creators using Unity. So use it, it's easy, you can really get onto it. And what I would really suggest is that if you're a youngster or even if you're older, it's not that difficult for you to learn. And especially with the current context, now you're home, now you probably may be a little comfortable staying at home and working. You may be able to, allocate a bit of time, maybe like a half an hour of the day. You can actually go through the YouTube tutorials and learn. There's so much of content creators who's really supporting on YouTube just how to do this with a very small knowledge of the knowledge of coding. And mind you, it's getting to a space where most of these content, or rather the platforms themselves, are trying to make it easier for non-coders or the non-developers to come onto the platform and start creating content, because more the content being created or more elements being created, they can actually monetize. Hence, they want more people to come onto their platform. Similarly, there's another engine, which is Unreal Engine, or a platform which can be used just like Unity, but goes a little bit more onto the PC end of things and VR end of things, where you can really leverage on creating more content on that space. So kind of shift in the space altogether, which again I would like to tell you. So there are trainers in the local space who we are proud to work with. One of our own guys called Thilina Premasiri. He's also an Unreal trainer, a licensed trainer, and who is a Sri Lankan. So we have the talent that is actually even teaching in the local space. So there's a lot of individuals who's really taking the strides in terms of teaching, taking the strides in terms of learning as well. So something that we also strongly believe in is that there's a lot of potential out there. And if you're really creative, you really do have the tools out there, and there is no one really holding you back. And us as Arimac also, we are very, very open. If you really have an idea, if you really want some advice, we're always there to help you out. And we also believe in building this ecosystem in terms of really taking Sri Lanka to the next leap in terms of making money on this space, because this is an industry that's been in the rise, and probably an industry which can really be very lucrative years to come as well, because we're not seeing any decline in terms of any of the trend line goes, in terms of usage, in terms of content creation, in terms of viewership. All the tackles, or rather all the tick boxes tick up, and make sure that this is actually industry where you really can invest on. And going a bit further, actually, you know, coming towards the latter part, what I want to mention is that gaming is there, and yes, I'm sure some of you are gaming, some of you are not. I myself still game, and I don't think it'll be anything that would be actually skewed with age. This is around things like how old are you to watch cartoons, kind of an argument. Because if the content is good, if it is rich, I'm sure at any age you will still consume it. So gaming is there to stay, and I wouldn't say that you know, it has become something that is more of a cultural aspect. So you do see people playing on their mobiles. Mobile gaming had been a phenomenal space for anti-gaming incidents to actually carry forward, or rather leap forward, which really enabled most of the users to get onto it. If I may to give you a fun fact, I was talking to one of the mobile services was being offered by one of the handset manufacturers working in the local space. I was talking to this guy, and he was saying, look, what's actually happening is that people are now thinking of, or rather the kids these days are thinking of purchasing their first mobile or the first smartphone, then their laptop, then their PC. They really don't want their, you know, gaming console. They would rather like to have a full-fledged probably like an Apple device or a Samsung device or a flagship device, or even if it's not a flagship device, they would still like to have a high-spec device. Good example of this is that if you really get onto YouTube, you will now see people are actually doing reviews on how PUBG works on a mobile. There are PUBG mobile reviews, talks about how PUBG is actually working on a mobile, and there are a lot of people really consuming that data to see what that really means. So which means they want to buy their phone, they want to make sure PUBG really plays out well in that device. Similarly, the industry is growing in a stage and it has become a pop culture. I'm sure there are a number of movies made out of games. I'm sure some of you have watched this, some of you wouldn't. And these are strides which shows that it is pop culture, it's there to stay. We've heard that Netflix is also getting into gaming very recently, and they have a number of shows which are inspired or rather connected with games. So a lot of these titles came from games itself, but make it really huge in the space of movies as well, which means it is culture, it is part of life. So what we can do as Sri Lankans, or what we can do as a nation also, what I strongly believe in is that there's potential in this. There's a lot we can do in this. So might as well, you know, there is definite arguments for and back. It's just like any other entertainment sector. What can we do, or how can we make sure that we really bring glory to the country and be part of this wave where we really make money and really convert most of the potential we have in-house to greater good. So I would like to end it with that, just to, you know, intrigue that thought in you, and probably we can break it into Q&A after this, just to intrigue that thought, saying it's already been done. It's done in Sri Lanka. We have done it. We have shown some of the stats. We have shown some of the materials as well, which means it is doable. Culturally, we are getting there. We are seeing a cultural shift around entertainment, especially getting into video on demand services. We see a lot of people now consuming data on YouTube, seeing a lot of people moving away from traditional television, which means that it's actually moving towards a different economy. And of course, we are seeing different strides taking place, especially in the space of what work from home and these distant setting is really putting us into. So there's a lot been changed. And we strongly believe that we really need to take the plunge and really move forward. And rather than complaining of what the things are happening, I would say we should make the opportunity to do really good. So with that, thanks a lot for joining in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's questions, I think we can now break up to Q&A. Calvin, we can start off with the Q&A if you're ready.
Thanks a lot, Subun. I think that was a great session. I learned a lot personally myself as well. So some interesting points I took from your session. So gaming is not kids play or toys anymore. It's serious business, right? You are looking at a business that is going to grow to even $1 trillion business out there. So it's not kids play anymore. So it's a huge opportunity which we have there. And I think as Sri Lanka tech companies, we should get into that. And the other thing is the interesting fact you mentioned about how gaming and gamifications are integrated to the other business use cases as well, which was very interesting to know. And so we have some questions coming in. Let me just share the question. So one question is, so how can a developer get started? Is there any open source platforms that they can get started with to develop these?
Sure. There's plenty actually. I would say one of the best or rather the easiest to get into would be something like Unity, which will really or rather give a lot of space, and there's a lot of content out there, Calvin. See, the beauty of gaming as well as game development is that it's pretty much a community driven thing, and the community really helps out. And it is such a fact where it's something of really, I would say it's something really cool because everybody really like to help each other out. And very rarely you see pitfalls in terms of when it comes to, forums. Most of the forums, like if you get on Quora, if you get onto any of these forums, very open, and a lot of communities that's tallied around Facebook, YouTube, do see that people really consume or rather share a lot of content. And in terms of open source platform goes, I would really like to tag something like Unity because it's free to start with. There are definitely paid softwares out there, but in terms of a free version to get onto game development, try to get a flavor of what it is. And if you're not much of a coder, I would say get on with Unity. But even if you are a coder, if you are into software development, would love to learn on that side, still you can do a lot on Unity. So I think Unity is a good space. And in terms of understanding tutorial goes, there's a lot even in terms of Sinhala content, Tamil content available on YouTube. So I don't think a language would anyway be a barrier. And there's global to local content being there for us to learn.
That's great, super. So there's another question coming in. Are there any use cases where gamification is used in education sector?
Yes.
Is the question.
Yes, so there is. And mind you, we've been working on a couple of cases as well, not that I can actually disclose right now. But yes, so if I may to give a best example, or I think this would really give more context to what I'm saying in terms of edtech and connecting education to the Sri Lankan context. This is a study that I did with a couple of my colleagues. If you really look at the mathematics Sinhala curriculum or the local stream curriculum we have in Sri Lanka, that has around 20 odd assignments. So these assignments are like, for instance, you multiply something by 4, you multiply something by 3, divide something by 2. These are the assignments that you have. So imagine doing a 26, 27 level game for a grade 1 student, very lucrative. You can imagine the engagement, right? I'm sure the parents out there would know how engaging they are when they come to their tab, when they are given a mobile. And I'm sure most of the parents actually get away from the kids, or rather keep them at stray using a mobile, which means it's engaging. So what the study we actually did, we figured out what they cover in a year can be carried out and really cover it within about 3 months. And that's with about very small engagement with the kid. So it's very powerful. There's a lot of gamification that we can use, and actually direct gamifying the content itself, Calvin, we can do.
That's awesome. And yeah, of course. And we have seen many educational apps which comes with this augmented reality and these kind of features. So tagging on to that, just want to get some insights. There's a question on where do you see this extended reality blending in with the gaming industry? What is the future with this technology?
Okay, so yeah, before getting into that, Calvin, actually, if you tune in, we are actually working on education or edtech product as well. So just stay tuned. I'm sure I should be able to give you guys some good news in future as well. So stay tuned on that. And especially talking about this particular space, extended reality. What works out is that I would say the best answer for you is to watch this movie called Ready Player One. For those of you who haven't watched it, I would really urge you to watch it. That future is not that far away. It's not that far away. So which means hyper realism in terms of content creation goes, it's there, especially with newer technologies out there in terms of virtual reality headsets goes, and especially in terms of the spec on the mobile devices these days are very powerful. And this really enables a lot of content developers to create content around it. So the AAA hyperrealism, light into texture into going up to the real detail level is actually possible. And you actually do see that blending in with a lot of material being created out there. So looking at most of the movies, the sets to everything being created using these tools, look like the tools I said, like Unreal, like Unity, are used not only on gaming. Like Unreal Engine is used in movie production as well. Talking about After Effects to all these. So really, it really extends to that. So extended reality goes, and in terms of creating content goes, I would say, it's definitely there. The future plays extended reality, and obviously, hopefully, I mean, I would love if everybody gets a VR headset and everybody can afford that. And trust me, it is some piece of technology that really can enable a lot and really unleash what it's actually happening. Just like an HDMI cable on a television, this is the next unlock we are talking about, where you really bring in that immersiveness. So it's gonna work out. And I think, we have the industry giants investing. We have Facebook investing on VR. We are having big giants really investing and really doing a lot of strides on that. So we hope, I really hope that there'll be a lot more affordable headsets, a lot more affordable content coming in really soon.
Thanks, Subun. So we have so many questions coming in. Let's just take few of them with our time. So another question was, what are the career paths in gaming esports other than being a developer? Or a game?
So you can't be either a gamer or a developer, but you want to get into the gaming industry. Cool. Yeah. See, all right. So it's like this. Coming on to it, in terms of a career point of view, I think one of the biggest giveaways people have is that, how can I make a living out of this? That's the easiest way to look at it. Okay, what's the price tag if I do this, if I do that? So in terms of career path goes, I think you can actually build it into two sides. One is you go down the entrepreneurship route, where you really build your own thing, or you really go on the career paths, which really depends on what your forte is. So it's just like any other entertainment sector, I would say. Think of it similar to movie production. Think of it similar to audio production. This is very much similar. So everything that goes on video production, that goes on audio production, goes on gaming as well. So you're talking about, if you are leaving out developers, you have digital artists coming in, you have audio artists coming in, you have visual effects guys coming in. And then of course you have the core engineering guys also coming in. You're talking about front-end developers, back-end developers, different software engineers really having, architects having a play on it. You can have an aggressive quality assurance in this process. So if you're a QA, if you're a game tester, you have a potential there as well. And then of course the concept part is to game designers. There's a lot of space there. See, a misconception around this is that we believe that our part of the world is not part of this community, or other, Sri Lankan Indians. We are not there. That's the general notion of business, or rather the understanding that have. Calvin, let me share something which really triggered me. I was
Sure.
on LinkedIn the other day, and I got hold of this guy who is from Pakistan. He is, as I mentioned earlier, a game called GTA. He's an engineer by profession, but he's the lead level designer and the lead concept designer for GTA 5, or this top grossing Guinness World Record game. And he's a Pakistani, mind you. Brought in, lived in Pakistan, moved across the tiers. And you do have our part of the world. There are a number of artists, number of people really picked it up because of the creativity space. So if you talk about something like level designing, you really need to have a good knack. It's not just on the domain. Like to be a good level designer, mind you, you really need to know, like, okay, let me give you a little bit of perspective here. If you're talking of something like Super Mario, where are you to position the enemy? Where are you to position a particular power up? That's level design. And there's a lot of science that goes into it. There's a lot of big data that goes into it. So trust me, all this data, all these people are involved in design. So career paths goes, I would say you need to excel at what you really like to do, and then you can find a tangent for gaming. So it's simple as that.
There is another question,
yes,
which is quite valid. How do you tackle content censorship within games, especially for younger kids?
Okay. So there are ratings on games as well. So there are international ratings that's given for censorship. So you can look into that. And then of course, it depends on the content. See, it's like this. If you take it, it depends on understanding, or rather drawing the line in terms of what content a particular age kid should play or not. The problem happens when the kid doesn't understand the behavioral change between one or the other. So you need to make sure that game is just like a movie, and you need to treat it just like a movie. I think the best way when it comes to censorship, Calvin, I would say, think of it like a movie, because you don't let a kid watch any movie out there. You would make sure that you don't watch certain content. Same thing goes for gaming. Same thing goes for music also, because there are explicit content when it comes to music. You don't let kids listen to anything they like. So how can you draw the line between the two? One, yes, you do have ratings when it comes to content. And then of course you can see the best way anyone who buys games these days would do is to go through some of the YouTube material, go through what the content looks like, and then make the purchase. And then of course, let the kid consume it.
Thanks, Supun. Then there's another question about gaming and monetization.
Yes.
What is your idea on that? I think the question might be related to how do you monetize on
yes.
gaming, right? Yeah.
Yes. So there are multiple ways. Just like any content out there, there are multiple ways. And gaming is one platform which really took off freemium model into a whole new league. Where you let the users come on, play free, and then at a particular point, you open up the price wall and let people say, hey, look, is this the time to make the purchase or not? One of the good case studies would be something like Candy Crush. Had been there for more than 6 years now, running really good, still getting people to purchase. So there are cases where some had even used up about 4,000 USD in terms of purchases, individuals making purchases. So one such angle is that. One of the biggest other angle on thinking is now getting onto the subscription module, just like any other content piece. So it's like Netflix, just like Spotify, which did it on video and music. We do see the Game Passes coming on to PlayStation, to Xbox, to Nintendo, to Google, to Apple. All these guys are doing the same. So you have the subscription model, you have free-to-play freemium model, and then of course you have one-time purchases as well, which is the smallest out of the three.
Thanks, Supun. So this is another question now. When it comes to the big boys in the industry, like Electronic Arts and Activision and all of these, is the technology really democratized that we can compete with them? Say a country like Sri Lanka or a company like Arimac. Is the technology really democratized that we can compete with these big boys because they use certain motion graphics, right, and all of that?
For sure.
So can we get up to that level? And is the technology really ready? The cost to do that type of level of production in a country like Sri Lanka?
Sure. It's like this, Calvin. See, I would really like it's a smart way of doing things. That's how I would rather like to put it. See, in terms of creating games, it's just like how I put it as a businessman is that I would put it just like doing up a movie. So if you do a movie in Sri Lanka, can you do the next Star Wars here? A person may not, probably laugh at me saying, are you crazy? You can't do Star Wars in Sri Lanka. You can't make the next Han Solo, or, you can't make the motion graphics to that level. It's not just the tech. It is a combination of a lot. And this is where I think we need to really understand. Like, for instance, if you take a game, most of the games out there that really worked out, especially story-based games, you really have good writers writing these stories. The plot twists to everything that goes in the design plays a major role, and not just graphics. So people have this notion where you think you really need the real crisp graphics to, conquer things. You feel like, it should be next to real. It's actually not the case. As long as you have this experience coming up. See, best example, if you take Minecraft, 10 years down the line, the blocky 8-bit kind of a look on things still gets people hooked on to it because it has such a good mechanic and it really gets you hooked on. So it's not really that. And can we take on the big boys? I would say yes. I think first of all, Calvin, we really need to get out of this island mentality, something which I personally keep talking everyone out of, is that we have this island mentality as Sri Lankans. We believe, oh, look, we are small, we are a small country, we only have 20 million, we don't have money. That's all I would say excuses that we put to say that we're gonna fail. I would rather like to look at it in a different perspective and say, hey, look, why don't we take on the big guys? Why don't we probably hit head on? Yes, we may not have the R&D, we may not have the data, we may not have I'm sure we have difficulties, but can we really hit against them? Yes, I think it comes with the creativity side of things and the novelty that we bring into the table. So if I may to give you a little bit of context, we are working, I'm sure you have heard of Nero, the game that we are developing. It's going to come out soon. We tackled the same problem there. So what we did was we want to create something novel, bring in a local flavor on things, because that's something which you can't find out there and they really don't know. So for instance, our terrains, Sri Lankan terrains, are very different to how a US artist looks at, creating terrain, especially a war-based game. They would rather know how to do the Viet Cong and the Afghan, but not know the local context on things. So that's something very novel, and especially a person who's consuming would really like to see. So that's the space. I think it's a matter of how we position it, how we be smart about it, than being, I would say, hard working around it.
We have another 5 minutes more. We are getting some good comments as well, as this is a very insightful event. So let's just take the final few questions. So
sure.
What are the trending research areas in gaming and gamification, which university students can carry out during undergraduate level?
Okay. So it's gamification and
gaming. I think it's for research for their maybe final year projects, any research that they can do.
There's definitely research they can do, especially with the surge of gaming itself taking up, Calvin. See, it's the behavioral changes is what I would say we need to really understand. Like, for instance, I will take something little bit away from gaming. Let me talk about something like Facebook. You really get onto Facebook, and I'm sure most of you who are consuming would think, you keep swiping, your screen, you keep swiping your Instagram feed, and you're there. You would probably want to spend about 2 minutes, but you end up spending about half an hour. So why that happens? It's simply because they really know the science to get you engaged. So as the researchers go, I think that's where we need to get the local insight in terms of why, how, answering those questions can really unlock a lot, especially on the setting where we really unlock it to the brands and the the corporates out there. Because see, ultimately, Calvin, it doesn't make any sense if we can't relate the two. And that's where I also come in, because we truly believe in the passion really needs to meet business. If not, we can't sustain. So in that context, I would say the university students could probably take that stance and do something where they can really make an impact, one on the society, one on the corporates themselves, so they can really not just tick off their element of finishing up their thesis or the finishing up their project, but really making it impactful. I
Great,
hope I answered.
Yes, so we'll take the final question. Actually, someone wants to connect with you as well. I will loop
yes
with you
yes please feel free to connect. Yes,
so let's take the final question. So yeah, the question is, do you have any plans to release the future games, say Nero, to consoles such as PlayStation and Xbox? If not, what prevents you from doing that?
Okay, Nero is a very subjective area, so I would say please wait and see. I don't want to make any spoilers here. Why anyone or everyone can't put content there? There is a problem which we need to understand, because when it comes to production, like especially physical copies of Xbox, of PlayStation, the problem is you really need to do physical copies, and you have a digital release. You have both, right? You have a digital release on content, and then you have the physical release. Physical release is in the decline. And that's where I think, guys like us can also really go take strides, because digital copy is easy for us because we don't want to ship it. We have that entire value chain being taken off, which really supports the cause. So what prevents it's that, so there are a couple of areas, right? So why anyone or everyone can't put content there is that you really need to build a huge case. And yes, you need to have connections, because these guys are like publishers. So think of it like you have done up a book. You want to go and get yourself published in one of those big publishers out there. Will they do that? That's a problem. So can you may have the next edge in terms of what you have created, but can you really open those doors of the big publishers is a question that probably most of the indie developers are having as well. But hopefully the democratization of that is gonna take place and would be soon. So we saw that happening with Google coming up with Play Store. It really opens it up, open it really wide. Apple did it somewhat. Huawei App Play, for sure they are doing it. So we are seeing a lot of these marketplaces opening up. But as far as Xbox, Nintendo, and PS goes, it's a tricky subject. And it's, again, they are doing it to safeguard their hardware and to safeguard their console. So there is a console play on that as well. But I would really like, see, more the consumption is now happening. Even though I also play on the PlayStation and on Nintendo, I still believe that the future doesn't actually hold up on the console play, because in future it's going to be a virtual console, and we may really not need to buy any hardware. Especially with 5G coming up, it's a virtual play we are talking about. So it's really going to be very different in very near future. Probably will be the last generation who talks about consoles. So we're getting into that virtual space very soon.
Yes, thanks a lot. I think we have come to the end of our time. I mean, we can talk on this forever, right? This is such an interesting topic. So thank you very much, Sugun. I think it was a very interesting session and very insightful information you have provided, personally for me as well. And I hope it was a very informative session for the audience. And wish you all the very best with your Nero release. I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you very much for the people who connected. And stay tuned for more insightful, interesting topics under SLASSCOM Tech Forum. So have a great day and take care.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me, Calvin.
Thank you.